Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is Jeremiah Baker, who is a cybersecurity expert, an author, and a keynote speaker. And he's also on the Stanford University Board of Advisors. And Jeremiah spends his time trying to hack hospitals and schools and businesses. And he is a self-described maniac entrepreneur. Welcome to the show, Jeremiah.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so you are theoretically at least one of the good guys here in the hacking world, right?
Correct. Yeah, we definitely try to be on the ethical hacking front.
So, I think it's really interesting. We could maybe start there. You've been doing this for almost 20 years, right? And your job is basically to go try to hack these places so that they know what they look like from that perspective and can better protect themselves. Yeah.
Correct. That's right. Yeah, the technical name for the service is called penetration testing. So the goal is to penetrate into the network, web application, so forth before the bad guys do it, so that our clients can see how it's done. Number one, how they were hacked, all their vulnerabilities, weak spots, and then go back, fix those issues, and then be retested and make sure that they have a clean bill of health, so that they're not a sitting duck to a malicious hacker out in the wild. It's a pretty common service. A lot of regulation requires it to be done. And then it's become, in the beginning days, it was something people just did out of best practice, but now it's really become, like I said, part of regulation, regulatory requirements, compliance, and now it's just standard practice. So it's good to see that people are taking it seriously.
Yeah, well, so much has moved into that virtual world. It's just, you can't get by without it anymore.
That's right.
So look, you're a smart guy. You clearly have this impressive background. You could be doing a lot of different things, but you are choosing to do this. How'd that happen?
It came about kind of in a long roundabout way. It's not something that I definitely did not go to school for this. It is not by my training. And maybe it'd be helpful for the audience just to kind of take a step back to see how I ended up. How did we get here? As the
no, that's my question for sure.
So I had a very interesting upbringing. My mother was the oldest of 11 children, and my father was the youngest of 7, and neither of them graduated from high school for various reasons. My mother was pretty much raising all her brothers and sisters. They did not come from high economic means. They were really probably below the poverty line at that time. And, this is the, 1940s, 50s, 60s. So and then my father dropped out of school because of learning issues. He had difficulties reading and things like this. So he dropped out of school and went into the Navy. But I, was not supposed to be here. So number one, I would have had an older brother, an older sister. Neither of them survived very long after birth. So my parents decided to become foster parents. And over the years, they raised 56 foster children in our home, in a very small home, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in upstate New York, which is crazy. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. Wow. And they said, hey, look, we need extra funds. We have all these kids. We have big responsibility. I came along 7 years after my older brother had passed with a similar health condition. I made it, fortunately, through the whole intensive care thing and all that stuff. So they said, look, we need to do something. We don't have a high school education. We don't have college, of course. And where we grew up, it was in the countryside. So there weren't even, I don't even recall anyone that had a corporate job when I was a kid. It was like electrician, plumber, these kind of things, teacher, and a few physicians. So they said, look, why don't we go into entrepreneurship? So they became crazy entrepreneurs and started in the multifamily rental property business, restoring old buildings, converting them into multifamily rental properties. And the first one was a 100-year-old railside hotel in upstate New York, which I was doing some research recently. And I think people like Mark Twain and these kind of folks probably passed by and maybe even stopped in there because it was on the route that they would commonly take. I didn't know that as a kid, but I found out later in life through research. So it's kind of interesting. But they converted this 100-year-old building into into an 8-unit apartment building. And then my mother had gone to beautician school. So she put a hair salon in the first floor of the building. It was a 2-story building.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of worked. So they started to clone that, and they brought me along with them starting at 5 years old. But it was always in
Yeah.
my mind, and I was kind of groomed for this. You're going to be the first to go to college. We want you to get a degree. And I did too. I was like, this entrepreneurship thing's cool, but getting up in the middle of the night in the winter, fixing a broken pipe or plumbing or
Yeah.
chasing people for rent money, I was like,
Yep.
this is, great lessons. And I love entrepreneurship. I caught the bug. I'm the only one that did out of the entire family, outside of my parents.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to college. And in college, I thought I was going to be a physician. So I was going for pre-med. Second year in, it was the dot-com boom. It would just started in the late 90s. So I
Yeah.
decided to start a business building websites, the foundational stuff. And I
Yeah.
got really fortunate. I would go to the career center every day, pestering them on how they could help me. I mean, I literally pestered them because I didn't want
Yeah.
to have to
Good.
go back to this old place where I lived. And it was not glamorous by any means.
Yeah.
And they said,
You
hey,
were
how would you like
motivated.
to build the first website for the National Soccer Hall of Fame? I'm on the board of advisors for that. Would you like to do it? I said, absolutely. Did I know how to do it? No. So I
No.
ran back to the dorm. I said, hey, computer science friends, I know you know HTML, you know graphic design. I got a project for us. Do you want to do it? So we ended up doing it. And it was really cool because at that time, they were also building this huge brand new facility in Oneonta, New York, with this giant soccer ball, like the size of a house, breaking through the side of the building. It looked really amazing. If
Yeah.
your listeners Google it, I don't think it's there anymore, but you'll see like this crazy imagery. And that kind of
Uh-huh.
sparked us into doing a lot more work with pharmaceutical companies, and got an internship in Boston and all this kind of stuff, that one step led to the next. And we started to build up a portfolio. Well,
Yeah.
mind you, this is the frothiness of the dot-com boom.
I
And
was
I
right
ended
in the
up,
middle of it. Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing, right?
Oh, amazing.
Amazing, crazy good. So
Yeah.
I'll kind of condense it down because, again, like I said, a little bit of a maniac entrepreneur. So we ended up selling the business to another one of the partners. I graduated, got a great job out of school that relocated me to Boston. I spent the first 3 weeks there in a boot camp learning how to implement something called Siebel CRM, which I didn't know this at the time, but it was the fastest growing technology company in US history in 1999. So we
Uh-huh.
did that. They shipped me
And
out once
CRM is
training was
customer
done.
relationship management, right?
It is. Yeah, like people know today, like Salesforce.com and these things,
Yeah.
they didn't exist at this time.
Yeah.
Siebel was the juggernaut, right?
Yeah.
So getting to what brought me into the hacking world, that was the first taste of it. I was asked, I was on a project implementing what was probably the first web-based CRM by pure chance, internet enabled versus being installed on site at a location.
Right.
Tom Siebel saw it. Someone from the organization saw what I was doing, sent a letter to the folks that I worked for. We were the integrators, and asked if I would come to our all company conference. And I was asked to speak about the future of CRM moving to the internet versus being housed in someone's data center inside their organization, and what I
Right.
thought the cyber risks would be
Yeah.
and the adoption of it. And I remember thinking, there probably aren't too many cyber risks right now, but it will advance in the future because people didn't even have high speed internet at home at this time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
also, what's going to happen with companies wanting to give their data to somebody else
Yeah.
and house it versus keeping it, kind of coveted and protected inside
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
organization.
So just for the fun of it, this was the days for those of you who will remember when it sounded like this. Right?
Absolutely. Those old AOL CDs that we would all get at the grocery store.
Right.
Free 10 hours, Yeah, so it
Yeah,
was an incredible time, right? We both lived
it
through that,
was.
and that kind of was the intro to cyber, but I didn't get into cyber right away at this point. I ended up
Uh-huh.
doing some consulting and moving around in different technology companies. I'd worked for Hewlett Packard and did a digital transformation for Equifax, our credit bureau, and so forth. And eventually I ended up in technology sales, helping to turn around a company that was servicing large enterprise tech companies, help them get leads, help them get sales, and
Mm-hmm.
move their goods and services. I ended up being the top salesperson in that organization. I'd never been really in sales before that. And what brought me to where we are today is even though I was celebrated, shipped all over the country to train everybody. I got the nickname Dad, deal a day. We sold in the 60 enterprise accounts. We turned it around. It was very exciting, almost a little
Yeah.
uncomfortably exciting to get celebrated that much. I wanted the rest of the team to get a little
Yeah.
spotlight,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Yeah.
one day I got it because I got myself fired. So they ended up letting me go. They fired me. And I said, oh no, I just bought my first home. I was in my late 20s, maybe 28, 29 years old. And I said, oh no, what am I going to do? One, I was pretty upset because,
So
hey,
was this one of the low moments, Jeremiah?
yeah, it was quite low. It's one of
So
those moments where you're like, what do I do? I have a mortgage to pay. Right.
yeah.
And as
And
I said
so
before,
and
my folks weren't flush with cash, like they're going to help me out. It was really all on my own shoulders.
yeah, and so are you willing to talk about what happened? How you got fired?
Sure. I'd be happy to. Well, I was brought into an office and in the management team said, we want to talk to you. And I thought it was just another celebratory thing. Right.
Yeah,
And they
right.
said, no, we're going
Applaud
to,
me again.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the flowers. No, not this time. We're going to sunset your product. And I was like, sunsets are nice, but it doesn't sound nice in the term that you're using
No.
it. What are we going to do? So they said, we're going to shut it down. But there was this weird wishy-washy reason why. And I couldn't figure it out. Like, how is this? We just sold 2.5 years and weren't able to sell. We got to 60 enterprise accounts. We're doing well. There's recurring revenue coming out of it, 7 figures plus. What is going on? I couldn't figure it out. Then they said, well, why don't we put you in this other role, which was to just cold call people? And I'm like, wait a minute. I have a feel like I'm getting set up for failure here. I mean,
Yeah.
I am maybe as dumb as I look here. I'm like, what is going on? And 2 weeks in, I get called into the office. They're like, we're going to have to let you go. And this, that, and the other thing. And it was kind of a loose, raising, almost like trying to put it on my shoulders, like it was my performance. And I'm
Right.
like, I just don't get it. Like, what
Yeah.
is going on? And then a little bit forward, here I am, first home, no job. We're just coming out of the .com crash at that point. This is
Yeah,
2005.
I remember. Yeah.
Right? It was horrible. I think 1 million people were out on the street spring of 01 in technology from the crash. So I still had that fear.
I was one of them.
Yeah, me too. At one point. So came through it. Ended up figuring out why they did it. They sold the business for almost $60 million to a competitor a few months later. So I have a feeling it had something to do with that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I helped do all this stuff, but I also didn't have any equity.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And, coming through the .com crash, I thought I had established a good thing, and I'd had 11 jobs in my first 7 years out of school because of the turmoil in the economy and internal politics and things like this. And I was always a high striver to perform well. Like I really put a lot on my shoulders to do well, but it just wasn't working. So that's the point, coming full circle, where I decided to start my own firm to help technology companies to get leads, convert them to sales, increase revenue and profits, and do it all demonstrably, like take the subjectivity out of it, kind of do exactly what I was doing before, but do it for a portfolio of clients. And probably my second client was a cybersecurity business. And that's what actually ended up getting me into cybersecurity as from a growth perspective, all the way back, going almost 20 years ago. And then through immersion of, dealing with clients globally for all these years, that's what brought me into cyber. It was not by training.
So it sounds like, I'm drawing a parallel here with my own experience in that when people say, gosh, John, you're so brave. You started your own company. You've been doing your own thing for so long,
forced bravery.
Right. Yeah, no, dude, because the saying, you've got to burn the boats, right?
Yeah.
Burn the boats.
Absolutely.
So you've got to win. You can't sail back home till you win,
Yeah.
Dude, I did not ever have the courage to burn the boats, but they finally just caught fire and I couldn't put them out. And so I was stuck, which is
they
pretty
were burnt
much
for you.
Exactly. And that was my story, right? I was in a similar situation, just like crying because I
Yeah.
was so scared. And
Yeah.
finally,
What
like,
am I
I'm
going
like,
to
well,
do? Right.
yeah.
What am I going to do?
And I just did something. And so I do think that having a bias for some sort of action is pretty
Yeah.
helpful, you
Yes.
know? Um,
Yes.
so anyway, I congratulations on not being able to put the boats out and
Yeah.
having to go do your own
Yeah.
thing.
They went away
Yeah, so
underwater.
so so what is it that inspired you? Because like you could have pushed this off to someone else, you could have
Sure.
hired somebody in cyber. Like, what was it? What is the thing still that kind of that's special to you about cyber? Like, why are you drawn to it? Why does it capture your attention?
Sure.
You're clearly a little all over the place like I
Yeah.
am. um
Yeah.
but
Well,
you're focused on this.
sure. Yeah. I think, in full transparency too, for the longest time, I didn't really consider myself a cyber person, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
like, I kind of labeled myself as this business growth. Like I help companies get leads, get sales, and get hope if they want to exit the business and sell it one day to get to that point of being able to exit. And we have tons of
Yeah.
those. Like the client portfolio has billions of dollars in exit value. And that was amazing. But in parallel, we're running the cyber business for so long. What I started to see happen, this is what triggered me to write the book Confessions of a Hacker, to go around the world giving this talk called Confessions of a Hacker. What
Yep.
I noticed is we're on the inside, right? So breaking into almost banks, casinos, hospitals, manufacturing firms, schools, government orgs, you name it. And we were doing all this super high tech stuff and always getting in. And it was really intriguing. And the techniques were getting picked up by television shows like Burn Notice and Homeland, The Wire. They were asking us, hey, how'd you do that? Because we would publish anonymized case studies that would talk about the work we did, removing company names or anything, kind of protecting the guilty, or
Yeah.
protecting the innocent for that matter. Um, and it started to get picked up. And many documentaries were filmed. Vice TV came around, did some stuff because it's very exciting work, right? Like, oh, you're hacking into what? And I noticed that that was cool, but the phone calls that I would get from folks post incident, if they were like people we didn't know, or maybe, sometimes a client something would happen to them outside of these services. And they would
Yeah.
say, hey, someone just stole $500,000, or a client thought they sent money to buy something from us, but the money actually went to somebody else, to a cyber criminal.
Yeah.
And I noticed a pattern happening where it was always the same things that were so damaging. Or, hey, someone clicked something and every computer in our company shut down because we got hit with ransomware and we can't function and we don't have backups and we can't restore. What do we do? And they want $500,000 worth of Bitcoin in order to give us the unlock code, things like that. Right.
Right.
And I thought, this is horrible because it's the same stuff decade after decade. Yet the world thinks of a cyber criminal or attacker in a hoodie. They're hacking a computer, doing some wild Mr. Robot, Mission Impossible kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's not that. They're not really. So it does happen, of course. We see it in the news,
Of
hacking
course.
systems and hacking technology, but they're really hacking us. And I had a few friends and a few family members that it happened to where it was pretty damaging. And that's when
Uh-huh.
I said, you know what? Quit hiding from this. You need to go out there and share. If people don't know how they're being attacked, how can they possibly protect themselves? So that's
Yeah.
when my mental state shifted. And I said, I need to be in protective service to others, especially given how I grew up with my parents always being in the service of others. I was like, I'm in a unique position to have seen so much. It's my responsibility now. So
Yeah.
that's why I focus on cyber, because it's genuinely helping other people. And even like I always say to the audiences, there could be 500 people in an audience at one of these giant keynote talks. And I'd say, if just one of you learns something to put these protective measures in place so you don't call me and become
Yeah.
one of the case studies that I share on stage next month, that'll help me. Because when someone calls you and they're like, someone just stole
Yeah.
500 or $700,000 from me just like this, and I can't get
Yeah.
it back because it left the country
Yeah.
to a adversarial, non-jurisdiction area, like Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, and it was usually just from something simple. The reason that it happened, they didn't verify, or someone got into their accounts or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's why I focus on cyber, because it's to protect people.
Well, I think that's great. And you know, I have in the back of my mind that, um, that there's a certain level of just, I don't know, there, like, I think that from my experience and what I've heard, and you can tell me if this is right or not, a lot of times I mean, most of the time, I think that people are not necessarily hacking the systems. That happens,
Correct.
but they're actually hacking our humanity, right?
They
Like,
are.
it's emotional intelligence. It's
Hmm.
being, you know, like playing on how we are as humans.
Yes, they're tricking
Um,
us. Yeah.
yeah,
They're tricking us. They're trying to make us do things that we shouldn't do by using things like faking, using AI to fake a call, and it sounds like your family member, son, daughter, father, mother,
right.
grandmother, whatever. Oh no. And then they'll apply some urgency and scarcity, like, I'm stuck somewhere, I need you to wire me money.
Yeah,
Or, hey, this is a fake email. It looks like it's from your boss, from your CEO.
yeah.
I'm out at a lunch. I need to go buy a bunch of gift cards, and for 2-3 grand, I'll pay you back once I get back to the office. Scratch off the codes on the back so I can have the codes, send them to me because I need to give them to this client. Stuff like that. Like, they're just
Yeah,
tricking
yeah,
our trust. They're tricking authority.
yeah,
Hey, I'm your bank. Hey, I'm some financial institution. Hurry up, give me your credentials, or else you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to lose this money.
yeah,
And those are all telltale signs that someone's up to something, because it's just old techniques that continue to work on us to extract
yeah,
money from us, to put us in harm's way. And it's increasing now with tools like AI, which is able to clone my voice or your voice, clone how we look, our loved
yeah.
ones. And it's accelerating
Well,
now. The emails, phishing emails, text messages,
yeah.
it's all spooling up in a aggressive direction.
So there's two things I want to bring up. The first one is, did you see the movie The Beekeeper?
I did.
I mean,
Is
it
that
was,
Jason Statham? Is that right?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it was super violent, but I have
It
to
was. I saw
admit
it on the
that, like,
airplane. I'm like, oh my
me
gosh.
too. That's where I saw it
Yeah,
too. But
yeah,
you know what, dude? There's this part of me that I'm almost embarrassed about that loved that movie.
yeah.
Like, I think there's, all of us would love to just go do that to the
Yep.
people that are doing these things, and I think that it's so visceral
Right.
because it is so deeply human, and it's so deeply manipulative, and it's so cynical. It's
Correct.
so, there's
That's right.
just something different about how I think it affects us, at least me,
Yeah,
that
I would
just
agree.
makes me feel like that movie.
Yeah, because they're tricking, I have an elderly relative. I'll speak in vague terms, that was
Yeah.
completely duped to give up all usernames, passwords, had their phones live, ported over to a bad guy's phone so they could get all their SMS messaging codes and stuff like that. And they got into their banks and all took over their entire
Yeah.
phone and everything. And it
Yeah.
was, luckily they were able to get it back, but there
Wow.
was a lot of damage done. And there's organizations that simply target the unsuspecting, the
Yeah.
elderly,
Yeah.
youth, and just, they don't care. They want what they
Yeah.
want,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the problem. But we cannot put our head in the sand. That's another problem I've noticed. Historically, it used to be a bigger problem than it is today, but I noticed early on, going 2013, 14 or so, it was hard to convince people that these things existed. And they would say things like, well, we don't accept credit cards, or we're not a target, no one
Yeah.
cares about us. And I'm like,
Right.
that will set you up for disaster. And it does. So, given where we are today, to your point, yeah, it's a real epidemic. It really
Well,
is.
so let's talk about whatever you can tell us here about, because the first thing is, with my brother and my sister and my wife and all everybody's kids, we've
Yeah,
got a password, right? Like,
yeah,
if you
safe word.
ever call me and you expect me to, like, do something, you
Yeah.
better be able to tell me the password, right? Like,
Yeah, the password or some weird phrase or something that no one
yeah,
could really
exactly.
guess easily. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty smart. Yeah, especially because I think I saw, and I had the stat written down here, the FBI released a report recently where they said scammers and cyber criminals stole a record total of $16.6 billion from Americans in 2024, making a 33% increase in losses from 2023. And this was published April of this year.
Do
So
you like, I mean, and has that, what do you put that down to? Because that's a gigantic number. And it's also a really big increase,
it
33%.
is.
Like, I mean, what do
So
you
I
put
think it goes
that
back
down
to the,
to?
unfortunately, goes to the old saying, and I think this, I'll start by saying this quote may be incorrectly attributed, but there was a famous bank robber and he said, "Why do you rob banks?" And he said, "That's because that's where the money is."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so that, and it's faceless, right? Like in the old days, you would see the movies where they go in with a weapon and they're, in person and it's high risk and they're doing all this
Right.
stuff. This is just groups, a lot of times from out of the country. Sometimes it's young kids. You see them showing up
Well,
in the
dude,
news.
no, oftentimes they're government funded from like genuine adversaries, right?
Correct. Correct.
And also just
And
high level organized crime.
exactly. And think about it like this, with now that we're in a world where funds move from phone apps and it's easy just to say,
Yeah.
"What's your phone number? What's your email? I'll send you the money," or you send me the money. And it can move so quickly. Like when we were
Yeah.
young, it was not that easy to do
No,
this.
dude, not even
Nowadays,
close.
yeah, now, and we thought, "Oh, it's so great and technology is progressing and we can transfer
Yeah.
money easier." That's great. But now
Yeah.
it's even easier for malicious people and cyber criminals to request and receive money. And I think that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah.
And at the corporate level, when I'm seeing wire transfer fraud, like where someone thinks they're sending it to a specific positive client, a vendor, something like that, but it's
Hmm.
actually a bad guy communicating with the company and getting them to send the money elsewhere.
Yep.
Those are always in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's an
Yeah.
extreme amount of money, and it can be extremely damaging, even to like small businesses. I read a stat that said 60% of small businesses go out of business shortly after one of these major kind of attacks or
Ouch.
scams like
Yeah.
this that's
God, that
financial.
sucks. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just there's a lot of money and it's easy to get it by simply, at the end of the day, they're just asking for it and people are giving it to them.
Yeah. So like, what are some overarching suggestions you have for people?
Sure. Like to keep it simple, right? Like what can the average person do? And a lot of times, a lot of these big companies, they have a whole cybersecurity stack, millions of dollars of
Yeah. Yeah.
technology, yet
Yeah.
they're still getting taken advantage of. So the easiest way to think about it is that I like to think about it is reverse how it's happening, reverse engineer. So usually the way that it's happening is there's a company called No B4, and what they do is they do cybersecurity awareness training. So they
Uh-huh.
teach corporations, and the employees will go through training on here's how all the scams and attacks are happening, and you kind of level up your knowledge that way. Well, they
Yeah.
published that firm published a report some time ago where they said somewhere around the number of 90% of all major breaches and scams started with some form of a phishing attack, like an email comes to you pretending to be someone they're not, and or
Yeah.
a phone call, a text message, something like that, and they want you to do something and they get you to do something you shouldn't do. Click on a link, give up a username, password, or whatever.
Yeah.
So what we've seen is most of the time these things happen, someone either gives up the information and or their information has been breached already, login credentials, username, password, somewhere on
Uh-huh.
some called the dark web, or it's being brokered by bad people because they got it some way or another.
Yeah.
And we all see it in the news. Big
Yeah.
institution is breached, and there's tools you can go look up. I think Microsoft has a platform where you can look up and see if your email's been included in a breach and so
Yeah.
forth. That'll give you an idea how susceptible you are. But what they usually do, they get your username and password, for example, and let's say you're in a corporation, they'll just log into your email account as if they're you. Well, imagine what that could happen then if you don't know someone's in your own email account, because the way that they usually get in is there's something called multi-factor authentication or two-step login verification.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks this day surprisingly still do not have this enabled.
Yeah.
And what really happens is when you have your username, your password, you put it in, it then asks you for a second code, which is
Mm-hmm.
usually on a piece of software on your mobile device or a key or a key fob device, something like that, so that if a bad person has your info, they still can't get in unless they have that extra code, right?
Right.
Adds a layer of difficulty. Well, a lot of folks don't have it, so bad guys get in, and through story format, I can share with you what happens. Exactly. That's what it is.
There we
Right
go.
there, the key fob.
Yep. There you go.
Yep. So a lot of folks still don't have that. Surprisingly, and it's because, wow, do we really need it? It slows us down. I don't want to have it. Well, are you willing to suffer these losses? If you're not, then let's
Yeah.
have it, right? Like, so
Yeah.
bad guys get in, they start communicating. And one example that I can share with you is in the private aviation space. So very high ticket, high dollar amount transactions. And someone got into a salesperson, had a salesperson's account, and they were communicating with a potential buyer as if they were the actual aviation company.
Uh-huh.
And right around the time when it looked like the client was going to get to the point where they could send the money in for the purchase, they said,
Yep.
sure. And they said, please send it to this wire info. Well, they wired over $700,000. And the client thought it was going to the aviation company, but it actually went to the bad guys. And
Oh,
they called a few days later and said, hey, we haven't heard anything from you guys. Where's our order confirmation or whatever? And they're like, we didn't ask you for anything. And then you get in there and you look and you're like, oh, shoot, someone's been under the radar communicating with the clients. And there was no multi-factor authentication on the account.
yeah.
So
Oh,
they just had to get bad guys got the username, password, got in there, hid their tracks, started communicating with clients and trying to redirect where the funds would get sent to. It's not super complicated, but that is how it happens most of the time, bluntly speaking. You could have all the technology in the world, but the bad guys aren't going to try to break your multi-million dollar defense systems. They're just going to try to trick the easiest way to get in so that they don't
yeah.
get caught and they can get the funds or whatever it is that they're looking for.
Well, it definitely for me, the times that I've come close to that, it's when I was in a rush, right?
Yes, the
So
urgency
like
is your
I'm
enemy in this
yeah.
scenario.
And I mean, and also, there's that underlying greed part of me, like, hey, you just got $100 gift certificate from
Hey, I
Radio
wasn't going to
Shack.
say
And I'm like,
anything. I wasn't going to
wow, I
say
haven't
anything, John.
even been to Radio Shack for a long time. Great.
Yeah,
I'm
Radio
like,
Shack's out of business.
right. Yeah. So, but it's dumb stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
That I'm
Yeah,
just in
they
a
prey on
hurry
our
and
human. They know us
exactly.
better than we think, right? And they work
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the things that I talk about a lot in my training, because I'm always talking about the neurobiology of influence and how to get people to take action. And I
Yes.
tell people communicating with human beings is not logical. You may have noticed it's biological. And when
Hmm.
you understand the biology, you can make it logical again. But if you think logic by itself is going to win with human beings, you'll just never be very successful.
I
And
agree.
I say, look, the dark side knows these tools and they
Yes.
are not afraid to use them, right? It's like the
They don't have
red
the same moral
lightsaber.
compass that we have. They don't
Right,
like
exactly.
you're not playing against someone like yourself. Imagine, there's a policy or a framework in cyber called zero trust. Don't
Yeah,
trust anybody or anything. Verify, verify,
exactly.
verify. And that's why, because they're not playing by the same rule book that we are.
Yeah. And, the other thing that I think is a bummer, especially when it comes to communication,
Hmm.
is that because the people on the light side of the force see the dark side using a lightsaber unethically,
Hmm.
they don't want to use a lightsaber. And it's like, no, 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 no. Look, we gotta use we need to know how to do this stuff. We need to know how to influence, but we're gonna
Right.
do it for good and we're gonna do it
Yes.
authentically. That's influence. When you do it for evil and you do it selfishly, that's manipulation, right? But they're the
Exactly.
same tools.
Yeah, it's just how you use it, ethically or
Yes.
unethically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that, to your point, that's exactly what it is, and to kind of be more helpful and more concise to your listeners.
Mm,
That's really what it is if you don't know how those things are being used against you, there's no way that you can protect yourself. But the
yeah.
good news is you can get educated, and you can see how susceptible you are through things like security awareness training, and or doing a cyber audit and or a diagnostic on your attack surface in your
Yeah.
physical settings, like your machines and your computers and your networks and those things. There's things
Yeah.
that you can do that are very simple to show you what you look like to the bad guys. And then you
Yeah.
can also know how they attack. Like, how are they, what are the most common ways that they're attacking? And that's what I do share in Confessions of a Hacker talk that I give, is here's
Yeah.
how they are repeatedly doing it. But the good news is, like I was saying earlier, most of the time these things could be prevented if you know how it's happening, and then you have the basics in place. Like you showed that key fob on screen for those that are listening, like a device that gives you a second code so that you can't get into an account, even if they do have your username and passwords. Or at least it makes it really difficult, and they'll move on to the easier target. They'll leave you
Yeah.
alone usually.
Yeah.
That, and then don't send money and don't wire it just because it's easy and you've been doing it all day. Always verify. Come out of the chain of
Yeah.
communication that you're in. If you're on the phone or in an email or something like that, walk down the hall, talk to the person. Is this you,
Yeah.
really you requesting that? Or call them on a
Yeah.
different number. Things like that that take a little energy, but if you
Yeah.
can avoid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of loss, why not do it? Right? Like,
Yeah.
and there's things like that that we can all do. And just being very, very cautious with what information you give somebody. Your bank's never going to call you and ask you for your username and password, or ask you to hurry up and send money somewhere,
Yeah.
because there's all this urgency, like you were saying. Just know, like, those are telltale signs of someone trying to trick you. But again, if you don't know this, you're probably going
Yeah.
to take it as if it's real, and you're going to comply and then give up stuff and then find out later that you've been duped or tricked, scammed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's awareness and then putting the cyber basic protectives in place. And a lot of it just comes down to our own ability to verify and double check everything before we do something. Because there's kind of a saying, like, if you can't afford to lose it or you're not willing to lose it, then please, please verify before doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's what will save you the majority of the time a lot of grief. It's not super expensive tech or equipment or consultants or things like that.
Yeah. Well, so where are you most active? Are you super active on LinkedIn, or
Yeah.
where should people find you and follow
Yeah,
you and
LinkedIn's the
things like
best
that?
place because we can connect, and it has that fancy messaging tool in there if there's questions people have or things like that. Always happy to help. And I know a lot of
Okay.
this stuff is very sensitive and private, so it's always good to take it on a. If there's questions, to take it on a one-on-one. But LinkedIn's a really good place to connect, and I'm always happy to help people.
And just Jeremiah Baker there.
Yeah.
We'll put
Yep.
that in the show notes.
Great.
And is there a website you want to point people to or anything like that?
If they're interested in the cyber talk, confessionsofahacker.com.
Okay. I'm writing that down, and
Okay.
we'll get that in the show notes. And so, we have about 10 minutes left, and I don't
Sure.
want to let you go till I have to. What else should we talk about? Like, what other things didn't I ask you, or what do you want to get across before we have to end this one?
Sure. Well, I don't think it's anything super specific, other than I would love to leave the audience with an empowerment of knowing that they can protect themselves
Yeah.
from cyber attacks and scams. And as we're coming here, we're right in the heat of the holiday season. So
Yes.
people are going to ratchet this stuff up. They're going to call you because they know you're expecting to get orders, and they're going to say, "Hey, your order's been moved," or whatever it may be,
Right.
or your package isn't here, and you need to give me this information to your Amazon account or something like that. Just be on heightened alert right now for anyone that reaches out to you saying they're your bank or some commerce.com whatever store. Be skeptical and do not trust them. Make them verify. Hang up the phone, call the actual organization from from a piece of, like a billing statement or something like that if you have to, but
Yeah.
never comply with what they're asking you to do. And be very vigilant on all of your accounts and things like that. And watch out for text messaging, phone calls that sound like they're from authoritative institutions asking you for certain information. Be aware of your accounts. Also, keep an eye on your credit reports. Make sure,
Mm,
someone hasn't gotten in there and they're maybe buying things in your name, stuff like that.
yeah.
That can happen around this time. And most of the bureaus now, you can go check your report and see what's going on there. And then it's always good to go, if you don't have multi-factor authentication on your email accounts, your shopping accounts, your a freeze code on your mobile phone account, and these kind of things. Go do some of those basics as soon as you
Yeah.
can, just to make it. You want to make it so difficult so that you're not an easy target for the bad guys, so that they'll
Yeah.
move on to the next target. I know it's an unfortunate thing to say, but you don't have to really outsmart them. Just don't make it so easy for them to get you. You know?
Well, it reminds me of the people who go up and down my street in my really nice residential
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood in Salt
Mm-hmm.
Lake City, and they just try the door
Wow.
on your car, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and if it's unlocked, then
Yeah.
they ransack everything,
Yeah.
right?
Steal everything. Made it easy.
But because it was unlocked, you
Yeah.
know, and I think that the you tell me if this is correct, but the lowest form of two-factor authentication is just a text to your phone, right?
It is.
You want to
Yep.
log in, send me a text. Here's the number, and bingo, I'm in.
Yep.
I think another level up from that would be something like Google Authenticator.
Correct. Yep. Google. And there's a
Uh,
few others. And most corporations, if you work for a corporation, they're going to have some form of identity control and identity management that they'll give you.
yeah,
And that's getting better once you get the authenticator. But then that
yeah,
key fob that you have, that physical YubiKey device type thing you
yeah,
have, that's where you really start getting up there in much stronger level of protection from the bad guys. That makes it really hard.
yeah,
And that's the whole goal. There is nothing perfect. There's nothing that's unhackable, untrickable. Anything can be
yeah,
hacked, but don't make it so easy. Like you said, don't just
yeah.
leave your door open.
Well, I
And
mean,
that's
and
what's
that's
happening.
I think that is one of the big takeaways. Just is there. It's probably not going to be that they have a quantum computer and they like hacked in because they tried every possible combination in the
Correct.
universe in 5 minutes. That's not
No.
what it is. It's they sent you a text that said, "Hey, get your free $100 from Radio Shack." And Radio Shack's out of business. And when you hover over the
Yeah.
radioshack.com URL, it says,
Yeah.
YYBZIO dot,
Yep.
RU. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, click that.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not what it appears to be. And that is what's really happening. There are whales. There's ultra high net worth individuals in the world. And that's another area that I help. And very wealthy, the top wealthiest people on the planet,
Yeah.
executives, things like this. So they're targeted. And that would be
Yeah.
more like a spear phishing exercise where they're like, if I get that person, the prize is really big. The rest of
Yeah.
the world, what's really happening is kind of a spray and pray methodology where
Yeah.
they're kind of doing a wide net and then they're seeing who complies, who's willing to
Yeah.
give me up this information, because
Yeah.
they're kind of lazy too, generally speaking,
Yeah.
right? So they'll go wide and they'll say, oh, look, out of 1,000 outreaches of people that we tried to get to, these 35 complied and we were
Yeah.
able to get tens and tens of thousands of dollars, from
Yeah.
them. And then they just keep doing it. And then when they find an area where it's easy for them, they keep doing it. We'll call that like a honey
Yeah.
hole, right? Like, oh, we
Yeah.
got a live one, right? Like they keep being
Yeah.
a victim. So point being, you're correct. And you just need to understand where you sit and what your threat levels are. And then
Yeah.
know that applying the basics actually does make you a very difficult target to where they will just move on. You're not one of those
Yeah.
easy targets for them to get to.
You know what it reminds me of? Kind of a tangent before we
Sure.
go.
Sure.
But it just dawned on me fairly recently, especially with when Twitter put on the geography function,
Oh yeah.
and all of these MAGA accounts ended up being in like Bangladesh and stuff.
Yeah.
Like John for MAGA, right? And it's got a picture of a white guy and it's, very American flaggy. And well, Twitter monetizes hate and anger speech and that stuff gets, boosted. And so, okay, let's say I'm living in Bangladesh on less than $1 a day. And I realize that if I just make myself look like I'm either extremely MAGA or extremely left, and I say horrible stuff, I don't believe it. I live in Bangladesh. I don't care at all, right? Like
Sure.
I'm living in Bangladesh on $1 a day, but like I
Yeah.
can do that. And now the algorithms pick it up and amplify it. And pretty soon I'm getting paid to create hate speech for one side or the other, or both, because maybe I'll have multiple accounts because I figure it out. Like,
Right.
of course I'm going to do that. Right. Like I can afford a house now,
Yeah.
and I just think that there's so much stuff. I think the bigger point is like, to really understand what's going on in this hacking world and in this, fake accounts world
Yeah.
and all of that, it's so counterintuitive for people who are used to living in a physical reality,
Correct.
right?
That's
Like if
correct.
somebody says, I'm from Philadelphia, and you're both on a plane and where are you from? Where are you from? Like,
Yeah.
okay, like why would they lie? Right.
Yeah.
But in this virtual realm, nobody knows you're a dog. Remember that, right? On the internet, no one knows you're a dog, but
I
nobody
do
thinks
remember
about
that.
that.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's all impersonation. Anyone can be anything. They can say they're some thing and they're not. And I run into it all the time, and it's not just at the scammer level, just so that your listeners know. It's also even at the highest level where you could be like in an ultra high net worth community and find out that someone's not who they're pretending to be. Like they've made up a fake like credentials and they got all the stuff in order and even got some testimonials from other ultra high net worth people. It's old. It's as old as humanity's been around, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not verify.
Exactly.
And be very suspicious.
Some of those people are being funded by like nation states.
Correct.
And so they're very sophisticated in how they can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to verify and just don't take stuff at face value.
Yeah. And that's it. And just be aware and be able to accept and acknowledge that we do live in a different world. We are no one's not a target.
Yeah.
But if you understand how cyber criminals think, and you put in the time to do the awareness training or have someone do it with you, facilitated, so that you can know here are the attacks that are happening and how to protect yourself from them. That's the best position you can be in so that you are not a sitting duck to these folks. Because another aspect of my talk, Confessions of a Hacker, is how to protect yourself before it's too late. And the dealing in reality and accurate thinking is most of the time when these attacks happen, be it a wire fraud transfer, a ransomware attack, some kind of extortion attack, or you're giving up your credentials. Once the bad guys get a hold of your money or data or whatever it is, your odds of being able to recover from that are it's often too late. So much. I know they always say an ounce prevention, all this stuff. We've all heard it growing up. In this particular case, it is very, very true. And the best thing we can do for ourselves and our families is to educate ourselves on how these things are happening. And there's so many resources. I'm willing to help people. There's free stuff out there, YouTube channels, you name it. But just sitting there and not becoming educated is really just putting yourself in harm's way. And that's my plea to the listeners is just make yourself aware of how the cyber criminals are attacking so that you can be aware of it, put the basics in place, and be better suited to not become a victim.
Awesome. Jeremiah, we're at time and I want to respect your time. And
thank you, John.
I really, really appreciate you joining us.
It's mutual.
Thank you. So yeah, I look forward to more. Maybe we'll have you back again, talk a little more in depth about what's going on, like in, real time out there and all that stuff.
Sure. Always happy to help. Always.
Okay, good.
Yeah, John, appreciate it. And happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Jeremiah. We're recording this on December 11th, 2025, and we're going to try and get it out here as fast as we can since the holidays are happening now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then maybe we'll make this a recurrent episode we post every December 1st or something, since
I
think it's going to be
update
perennial.
It.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
All right. Well, thank you too, Jeremiah. And thank you for listening, because none of this makes any difference without you. I've I've put things out into the ether that no one listened to, and they didn't make a difference. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this with your friends. Thank you for giving us a 5-star review and writing something nice, because that helps more people find us. And I will look forward to seeing you next time on livelikealeader.show. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.